John, we got a special guest today.
We do.
Ken Shamrock.
Ken, welcome to the show.
I'm special?
Yeah, like I
little bit, little bit.
But we're seriously special, definitely.
A little bit.
Last time somebody called me special, I beat him up.
Yeah, I believe that.
No, then you're not special. Then you're not special.
All right, so Ken, you've always been real open and honest. I think the one thing that I get from your interviews is like you're not only an open book, but you go so deep that there's nothing that's being hidden. But the one thing that's always interested me about you is obviously you had a rough upbringing, and Bob Shamrock took you in, eventually became your father, but you don't really talk about life prior to the group home, like your mother and your father. Have you ever had contact with them since you have become, I guess, a celebrity?
Yeah, actually, my brother, Robbie, my biological brother, who's doing life in prison right now, but prior to that, he had reached out trying to find our dad and sent some letters out and got a response back. And lo and behold, he was our father. And I hated him for a long time, just never thought much of him because we felt that he left us, or at least that's what we thought. And so I remember when he came to visit, he was going to drive up. I'd already been fighting. I had the celebrity status, and I was like, Rob, why did you do that? He says, you know, I already have a father. I says, I don't need this. And so he says, yeah, but he should have the right to, know who we are, want to know who he is. I says, all right. But, I'm going to make sure I set it straight with them, that, I have a dad. And unfortunately, things happen the way they happen. That's just the way it is. He gets there, and we start talking, and he calls me his son. It bothers me, right? But I found out that it wasn't necessarily, obviously it was some of his fault because he wasn't living properly. He was running around, he was drinking, he was an alcoholic. But he didn't leave us like we thought. What happened was my biological mother had met somebody in the military, and she ended up hooking up with him. We jumped in the back of a '69 Camaro, and we drove 3,600 miles to Napa, California. He didn't realize that we were being taken, and he already had a restraining order against him. So for him to come hunt for us, especially in California, they had arrested him and stuff. So he said he had no idea where we were going. He didn't know we were going to California. He didn't know anywhere where we were going. She knew that she had met this guy, didn't know where he was from, and ended up just disappearing. He said that he feels bad because he didn't make an effort to find us, but he just felt that he had screwed up enough already that maybe this was the best thing. But then, 30, 40 years later, he gets this call from my brother asking if he's our dad.
That's wild. So
what do you tell a guy that, has changed his life around, he's become a Christian, he's got a family of his own, he's doing well, that he finds out when this other kid of his reaches out to him that he doesn't want to know the other two, which is my oldest brother, Richie, and myself. And so we did, and I accepted it, and so it's been a progress. I even did an interview with him one time where talked a little bit about some of the struggles that he went through and some stuff he was going through, and some of the thoughts that I had and the struggles I was going through. And so we kind of hashed those things out. Right now, I think we have a pretty good relationship. But it's still, he lives in Georgia, right? And I live here, and it's very, very difficult to reestablish any connection there because they're just so far away.
I've heard some of your interviews where, and this is kind of going off topic, where the way you approach relationships is very telling of somebody that has gone through a lot of therapy. Have you gone through a lot of therapy, or is this just through personal research where you've kind of come to where you're at today?
Yeah, more personal research. Obviously, my father being who he was and working with kids and constantly counseling them, I got a lot of that from him, of different characters and personalities and way to deal with things. That's where I got my thought process is from him. Always forgive, always give people a chance, but doesn't necessarily mean you have to let them in. Don't have to put yourself in a vulnerable position, but you don't have to turn them away. You don't have to reject them.
Right. Okay, so we got that out of the way. I know that's some deep stuff, and I sincerely appreciate your brutal honesty in regards to the topic. It's not an easy thing to discuss.
Right.
All right, so in the beginning, you started as a wrestler. Am I correct?
Yes.
Okay. How did you start in Japan? And then I'm trying to figure out where your submissions come in at.
Mm-hmm. Well, I started. I just got done playing college ball. I did really well there and broke my neck prior to that, saying I never played contact sports
in high
again.
school, right?
Yes, yeah. I ended up overcoming that, going in and playing ball. Did really well. Basically, I couldn't go to a university because when I broke my neck, I wasn't the best at school anyways because I had missed all of grade school in and out of juvenile hall. So here I was going into high school in special ed because I didn't have any of the skills that I needed to go into regular classes. Eventually, as a senior, I worked into all mainstream courses. Well, then I broke my neck. So I missed 6 months of school. And so for me to be able to go back and make all those things up, I spent a lot of time doing that. But then when it came to the scholarships that I had when I broke my neck, I lost them all. And so I couldn't get on an education, couldn't pass an SAT. So when I played college ball, I played at junior college and I played a semi-pro team, and then I was done. It was like I was good enough to play at university. I was good enough to go on to the next level, but I had no ability to get there because of my education.
Yeah.
And breaking my neck and not being able to stay up on my work. So that led me to, basically going into an opportunity to go, hey, where do I go from here? What do I do now? And I remember my father said, hey, you got to try wrestling. He's a big wrestling fan. And I was like, okay. So I went to Mad Dog Buzz Sawyer, which was in Sacramento. It was only like 2 hours away from where we lived in Reno. So we would drive up there on the weekends, and Buzz would basically, all he would do is he would invite these guys down from all over the place. He was charging $1,500 for tryouts. And he'd have me shoot on them.
Just to try out?
Yeah. He'd have me shoot on them and make them quit. And then he'd throw me $300. And he would, basically, that's all I did was shoot on guys and thinking I was going to get trained to be a pro wrestler. And he kept saying, we'll get to that. I just need you to do this. And, and it just never happened.
You were the muscle. Yeah.
And then he died. He overdosed. He OD'd. Cocaine into a club. He went into a stall and did a bump, and it killed him.
Never came out.
So I had to find something else, and so my father looked around and found a place in Mooresville, North Carolina, which was Nelson Royal, who was a former wrestling champion. I was like, okay, we'll try that out. Long ways to go, but picked up the family.
Yeah, other side of the
Dad
country.
sold the house, group home.
Jesus.
Boom, move across country, and I started jumping into pro wrestling. And this is where it was crazy. My dad had that much confidence in me. He must have saw something that I couldn't see. But a year later, I was carrying a strap, in a small organization. And then, of course, I went over to Japan, Baba's group.
How did you find Japan? This is like pre-internet, pre-Facebook or Twitter or Instagram. How does that happen? To me, that seems almost impossible.
It was crazy, but the connections that these guys had in the pro wrestling circuit, they were sending guys over there that would do different 6-week tours or 8-week tours, and then they would come back. And so they were looking for a couple guys, and I got sent over. Year and a half into my wrestling, and I got there, man, it was so fast. It was literally completely different than everything I just learned.
Different style.
Yeah, and so here I was working with all these guys, and I was not doing well. And usually you see guys, when they don't do well, they send them home in 2 weeks. They don't stay long. They send them back. And I thought to myself, I'm not going home. And so what I would do is that I saw a bunch of young boys working out before the show and after the show. And so I would go in and do my show, and I was either first or second on the card because I was not carrying myself very well. I just couldn't catch up to the speed. And so I started staying after and working with all the young boys. Well, 4 weeks into the 8-week tour, they come to me and say, hey, we're going to keep you. And I was like, wow, thank you so much. And it was all because I put that work in. Like, I was literally trying to get better. I knew I wasn't there. And so by the time I got done with that, I was up with everyone else. I was putting on good matches. I was carrying the speed. I would register but not sell. And I was in semi-main event and main event before I had left. So I went from like really horrible, not really being able to understand how they do things.
Prepping the crowd. Warming the crowd up.
It was like, man, like you're worried about the crowd because they're not saying anything, and you're selling and you're not supposed to sell. You're supposed to register and all these different things that they do over there. So finally I caught up to that, and then I was really doing well, and that's where I think I really became a student. Even after I went back to Nelson's, I had to go back to selling, right? But then I mixed the two together, like the moves they were doing over there and the fast pace, and then still selling. So I kind of mixed those two together and having that education. And then, I was carrying the strap, and then I got to try out with the WWF. Did some house shows. And so, so a lot of people go, hey, man, he's a fighter that went into the pro wrestling. And that's not true.
And what's crazy is your history in wrestling is just as important as your history in combat sports, like in MMA, particularly the UFC in Japan.
Yeah, I think not a lot of people know that you were doing pro wrestling before you were doing MMA. I'm sure that's probably going to be the biggest shock question that you get asked.
So, like, you were on the same card when Owen Hart passed, and you were the second match after the incident. What was the locker room like after that?
Wrestling's a funny business, man. I mean, when you talk about that happening, people were like, okay, where's the gimmick? You're like, when's he coming back? No one believed it. The only people that knew what had happened was Vince and the guys in the ring, the referee and the other guy. Everybody else was like, okay, what's up? Because they always do that. They always want the boys to believe something happened, right? So everybody's always trying to pull a quick one to get the boys to buy into something like it was that good, right? And that was kind of the thought process. Everybody's just going, come on, man. They wheeled him out, man, and he literally was strapped down. And I remember as he's rolling through, everybody's like, man, he's going to get up here. And then they put him in the ambulance, and he took off, and everybody's going, man, they were really working this. It wasn't for, I would say, probably the next day when we were actually told, hey, Owen's dead. Even though we were told that night, everybody was like, yeah, whatever. That's a bad rib, right? But it just didn't register. And I don't think it registered to a lot of guys for a while. I just don't think people in that world that with putting on all those entertainment and different things, that anybody really never accepted the fact that it was real. The fans never accepted it for 6 months. They kept screaming, we want Owen, well, he's dead. And it was so hard for everybody to get by that because nobody accepted it. It wasn't like you, in the regular world, somebody says he's dead, they're dead.
Yeah.
In this, it was almost like in the back of your head, you're like, okay, he's coming back.
Yeah, you're trying to get me.
Right.
Yeah.
So that was a really, really uncomfortable, unsettling situation, because even myself, I was like, man, that looked real. And in my part of mine, I'm going, yeah, that was real. He's gone. And the other part of it's like, man. And then they come back 6 months later, and they do the animal thing where he falls off the Megatron.
Yeah.
And I'm like, whew, that was so. I'm like, are you kidding me? Mm-hmm. And people were still, I mean, even it was that long, people were still like, is Owen really dead? I mean, obviously we knew at that time, but still there was that question. And it was almost like the believable part, you just couldn't believe it. You don't want to believe it. And then they do that, and you're like, oh, man, where are we going with this? Like, come on.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine that. So there was just, the locker room was just lots of questions, huh?
It was, people cried. I mean, just the thought of it. But man, like I said, I really don't believe people understood. And then I
Gravity.
know the fans didn't.
Yeah.
The fans were like, no.
Well, I was wondering. I watched it.
I watched it live.
I thought it was just come on,
Yeah, right.
good gimmick. Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
Well, that was a good one, right? And and even with the boys when it was coming out, I mean, we all knew what we saw. We all knew the reality of it, but the acceptance of it just was almost like, well, I don't want to put myself out there. And he gets up and makes us all look stupid, right? Mm-hmm. And that was hard for his family because they knew he was gone, right?
How was Owen Hart as a person, human being?
He was really a good dude, man. He was fun to be around. He's one of those kind of guys, everybody got along with him. I don't think there was one person that didn't like Owen.
All right, so I had heard that Dean Malenko was a person that was influential in showing you submission grappling. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely.
Why did he not fight Pancrase?
I don't know. Maybe he did. Maybe I don't know. I know him and his brother were involved with it because his dad was the one that ran the gym that Sammy was at that was a promoter for Japan. And I know they wrestled those guys, and I knew they knew how to shoot. I knew they knew the submissions.
Brilliant guy, man.
Yeah. I mean, they were great workers, too. And, and he showed me a bunch of stuff, because he rode with me. He stayed at my house. So we had a good relationship, and he's the one that introduced me to Sammy, and then that got my opportunity to go over to Japan.
That's wild. All right, so in the beginning, MMA-wise now, if you were to subtract Brazil and Japan and you would just look at the United States and Canada in regards to submissions, Eric Paulson, Goker, Gene LeBell, and yourself, in my opinion, are the four people that were probably at the forefront of the submission game. Where did your learning come from? And what is your opinion of those other guys?
Yeah, I think those guys were all tremendous. I mean, I worked with Gokar. I went to his gym, rolled with him. I had Oleg Taktarov.
Oh, Jesus.
Legend.
Yeah, and and Paulson trained me for a fight, and just the knowledge that guy has. I mean, I know a lot of stuff. I've lived a lot of it, but the way those guys retain that stuff, I don't retain. It's almost like I teach people because I remember it, right? Or I'm in a position. Oh yeah, you got this. I mean, these guys literally retain this stuff, and they can literally just teach it to everyone. Paulson's a great teacher, great instructor. And I remember working with him, and he was training me for a fight, and I was really impressed with the knowledge that he was able to retain and still keep remembering and doing, and being able to show me stuff I already knew, but I just forgot it. And so he was a really great trainer for me. And like I said, I think those guys, Gokar, you talk about Paulson.
That's your grassroots right there, man.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about all those guys. I mean, it's amazing to see how much they don't get credit. You always hear about jiu-jitsu, right? But you don't hear about catch wrestling. You don't hear about these guys that literally, at least in my opinion, literally put UFC where it's at, because it's not jiu-jitsu. Everybody says it's jiu-jitsu. It's not jiu-jitsu, because jiu-jitsu don't strike.
Yeah.
But catch wrestling, they do. They do all of that, punching and leg locks and arm bars.
It was like the counter to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Yes.
And, was there a little learning curve there? Absolutely. But there was also a learning curve for Jiu-Jitsu as well in order to improve itself. And those guys, the Mount Rushmore of American submissions are you four as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I think that the roots definitely run through them, and and like I said, when you talk about the experience that you got to have when UFC came out and you were able to showcase it in front of millions of people, I mean, that was really an awesome thing, because for so long, a lot of guys only did it through pro wrestling. And in catch wrestling, there was really no real shooting other than a couple maybe shows that you went on in wrestling where guys were really shooting on one another. Me and Severin actually did a show down in Australia. That rivals some of the old school, catch wrestling matches. And somebody actually did an article on it and said it was a throwback to the old school where guys in pro wrestling used to shoot on one another and go out there and have fun, and they do real matches. And me and Severin did that over in Australia, where we went 40 minutes. And at his being 60 and me being 55, right? We put on a great show.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not trying to bounce MMA wrestling, but what was the difference in locker rooms between pro wrestling, MMA here in the United States as well as MMA or wrestling in Japan. Well, is there a difference, or is it all kind of the same?
No, to me is a difference. There's a difference in the politics. You know, over in Japan, it's such a small country, and there's the level of expectancies of these guys to win, and being put in positions to win, and even altered things so they will win, putting them more in a favorable position to win, happens all the time over there. Gloves change. One guy, I wore these pillows for Sakuraba, and he got these ones that were loaded. They were heavy. And you hear stuff like that all the time, and different stuff that they would do. But here you can't. I mean, you can to a point, but there's sanctioning bodies here. And literally, they're trying to keep everything fair. Over there, the sanctioning bodies are the fighting organizations.
Or Yakuza.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So they got a guy over there like Sakuraba or Maeda or somebody that's big over there, or Baba or Inoki. They get put in there with Muhammad Ali, and they're not going to lose. They're going to make sure the rules fit them to win. Whereas here, I think it's different because there's sanctioning bodies here. No matter what country you come from, everybody has to abide by those rules. Yeah. But over in Japan, man, I've been there a long time. There's some shady things, man, and it's because it's so small that the organizations themselves control their own rules.
Would you say that kind of gave you leverage in regards to how you operated? When the UFC first started, because you've been around those situations. Like, you got to remember, like, we're all pretty green until you experience something. And meanwhile, you've been run through the grinder numerous times.
Yeah, but over in Japan, I was the one being protected, you know. And I see many times where there's different stuff that came up where things were shifted, my favor. Not that I, needed it, but I was their gaijin, the guy they were putting over, the guy they wanted to be there. Other than the tournament where I think they were a little bit shocked that the first person ever to win a mixed martial arts championship was a gaijin, a foreigner.
Right.
I really believed that was going to be the kid that beat Suzuki. I forget his name. I beat him in the tournament, and then I ended up fighting him in the finals. But I think that was the one they expected to actually win it. And I thought Funaki was the one that was going to be in the finals with him, but I ended up upsetting Funaki. But it was a great feeling, But like I said, I think they, once I was there and I was on top and I was under their contract, I felt that comfort of being protected, But you just don't, over here it's not the same.
Is it protected or knowing you're not going to get screwed?
Knowing you're not going to get screwed.
I think
if it goes to a decision, you're going to get the nod. If it's close, you're going to get it.
Yeah.
Things like that, right? Oh, I mean, and I never got anything like a glove or anything like that. But I've been involved with my own fighters where rules have been changed. They would do different things. They would load gloves.
This gives us our next question. Yeah. All right, so you had a hiatus from the UFC.
Yeah.
And obviously where we're going with this. So, Guy Mezger fights Sakuraba. Mezger's got a broken foot at the time. Am I correct? You guys agree to, the standard rules, and Mezger wins.
One round, 15 minutes. And they wanted to do like 3 rounds of 15 minutes or something like that.
Afterward.
And I said, no. I said, if you want a guy to fight in this, I said, we'll do 1 round because he's injured. Because they really wanted him to fight Sakuraba. And I said, he's not ready. He's got an injured foot. It's still healing. And so they kept saying, we really like to have him. And I said, well, I'll tell you what. And I even talked to Guy. I said, Guy, can you do 1 15-minute round? Can you go 1 round?
You're giving them a wounded duck, That's what they want.
Right.
Yeah.
So he goes, no, I can do 1 round. I can do 1 round. I said, okay, can you do 1 round, though? Like, can you be good 1 round? He said, no, I can go 1 round. He says, I'll be able to have everything last, the pain thing last long enough for 1 round. right? So we said, all right. So I told him, I said, okay, he'll do 1 15-minute round. And they were like, okay, good. Oh, thank you so much. And I was like, okay, cool. So we get there in the match starts, and I was already knowing that if Guy beats him, they're not going to want this thing.
You already know what's going to happen.
Yeah, because I've been there, right? I know. And so I had already planned on my game plan if that happened. And so Guy beats him. I mean, literally, Guy wins the first round. thinking, yeah, all right, cool. And all of a sudden, they're like, go to corners. And I was like, oh, I didn't see that. Nuh-uh.
They're about to ring the bell. They're about to ring the bell.
No. I walked right into the ring, right up to the ref, and I said,
Took that yellow card out.
Because I know you know. The referee knew, too. And I said, I know you know. Oh, don't speak English. I said, you speak English.
That's convenient.
Right. And I said, let me tell you about English. It's over. He won. They're like, no. It's 3 rounds. No, that's not 3 rounds.
You
we had
ballistic.
an agreement. I told Guy, and Guy wanted to go. He did.
Well,
Get credit.
That's why you have people that care about you in your corner.
Right. So I looked at Guy and I said, Guy, go. And he's like, are you sure? I said, go. I said, I had an agreement with these guys. Forget whether or not you could still go or not. The point is we had a verbal agreement. They told me 1 round. And so Guy goes to the locker room. Of course, they were so
Man, what was that
pissed
like?
off.
What was that like?
Then they forfeited, made him forfeit the round, forfeit the fight.
Did they pay him?
They paid him, but they forfeited him because so Sakuraba could go on and win. I was like, are you kidding me? Guy beat him.
They got what they wanted. They got what they wanted. All right. Yeah.
Well, and it was so blatant too. It was so bad. And then, from that point on, my relationships with them started to go downhill because I was so angry that they literally blatantly lied right to my face.
Yeah, you're a black and white guy. There's no gray area in regards to that stuff. And and I can see that it's one of your fighters. Now, you said your relationship went downhill. Now, you took a hiatus, but your first fight back was for that same organization, Pride. How does that bridge get rebuilt in order to do that?
Man, listen, whenever you're talking about money, you're talking about a gate, anything can be rebuilt. You look at Antonio Brown. I mean, I know you guys follow football, but that guy's done everything wrong, and he goes to a Super Bowl team.
It was almost like a setup.
And gets paid.
Really? And gets paid. So, hey, listen, talent out chumps any personal feelings or personal problems. And so I went back because I was still a pretty big draw, and so I went back and did some fights for him.
So you were still being able to communicate with them and actually come to an agreement on that, obviously.
I've always been like that. I'll have an issue with somebody and I'll get mad and I'll blow up and
money
this and
talks.
that. Yeah. But for me, as long as we've discussed it and I didn't give into it, I said, you guys said that was 1 round, and they wanted me to say, no, you can't say that. And I said, no, but you said that. I said, and I'm not backing down from that. And so I literally said in interviews, they said 1 round. And but I told them, I said, you guys know it's true. And then they wanted me to sign this thing, and I said, no. And then they came back and wanted me to fight. And I was like, yeah, okay, bygones be bygones.
Right.
Because I literally did what I said I was going to do.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say, I'm not going to hide this. I'm going to tell them what happened. And I did. And then they came to me and said, hey, you want to fight? So I said, yeah, sure.
Okay, so now we're going to stay on Japan. Rings was an organization that was incredible and very far ahead in regards to their knowledge of the sport and procuring talent. The guy
Heavyweight too, man.
Pardon me?
The heavyweight division.
Oh, for sure. I mean, dude, Fedor, Dan Henderson, I mean, it's incredible. So Akira Maeda, who also wrestled in Japan, was in charge of rings. Did you have a relationship with him?
I mean, a small one. I wasn't there long before we split up the group, but I did go to dinner with him a couple times, and I think that they saw the talent I had early on, and I think he was kind of grooming me. But I think he realized early on that my connection to Sammy, Saranaka, and Fujiwara was stronger than the connection he had with me. So then when everything was split in those 3 different groups, Takada, Maeda, and Fujiwara, I went with Fujiwara because Sammy was the one that brought me in.
I think he gets overlooked in regards to his influence in mixed martial arts. I think it's almost a forgotten name that deserves a lot of respect.
Yeah, it's funny too when you talk about Sammy. Unfortunately he passed away, but he was the one that really brought all the talent from the U.S. For us to get that kind of credit. You got Bart Vale and a bunch of other guys that Sammy actually brought over to Japan. That helped start that generation of catch wrestling here all over again in the U.S.
I'm surprised that never took off, man. They just didn't have the marketing tools that jiu-jitsu had. I mean, it was just as viable.
Yeah, it did, and I thought it was more well-rounded than jiu-jitsu because you're thinking about fighting off your back. Literally, that's kind of what you do. But with catch wrestling, it's off your back, it's on top, it's upper body, lower body, strikes, it's all of that. And I just, like you said, I think it's more the actual marketing part of it, whereas the Gracies did a great job at marketing their style and putting that big show on, the fight on, to be able to produce that style.
That spectacle,
right.
Almost, yeah.
And then catch wrestling has kind of never done that other than through pro wrestling, where you see a lot of guys who are catch wrestlers.
That's really unfortunate.
Yeah.
It really is. Now, speaking of the UFC, Art Davie was the original matchmaker. Your thoughts on him and how you guys connected for UFC, for your participation in the UFC?
Yeah, I was actually fighting over in Japan. I was a champion. A friend of mine, Scott Bazak, brought me this flyer.
For Pancrase. You were fighting for Pancrase, am I correct?
Yes. Yep. He brought me this flyer, and it said "No Holds Barred," and I was like,
That's a badass name. That's a badass name, man.
But no, it's not, because when you think about "No Holds Barred" in those days, that was Hulk Hogan. Eat your vitamins, go to school, a cage match, no holds barred. That's what we thought that was back then. Like, no holds barred was wrestling. And so when he handed it to me, I was like, no, that's pro wrestling, dude. He goes, no, look at it. So I looked at it, and it talked about the Gracies and the jiu-jitsu going against all these different other styles. And, we want the best of the best. And I kind of looked at it, and I was like, this for real? It's like, it says no holds barred. Like, this is a fight, or is this something else? He goes, no, man, it's the real deal. And I said, all right, well, I called Art Davies, and I go, hey, I'm just checking out this flyer. Is this pro wrestling? He goes, huh? No, this is a fight. It's like, we're pitting champions, these different champions in different styles against one another one night to see, karate and boxing and which is the best. And I was like, well, I'd like to throw my hat in there. And he goes, well, what do you do? And I said, well, I'm the champion over in Japan, in Pancrase. He goes, what's that? He goes, I go, well, it's basically striking, open hand, kicking, and then you take people down and you submit them. And he goes, what? I was like, yeah. It's
exactly what it is you're trying to do,
exactly.
Except in Japan.
Yeah, well, that's what he was shocked with. He was like, what?
This exists?
Like, nobody knows how to do what the Gracies do, right? And all of a sudden, his eyes were open to, oh, wait a minute. Here's this guy that does what they do, but over in Japan. And so he literally said, let me call you back. And remember, we hung up, and I don't remember how long it was, but it was really fast. He called me back, said, you're in. Because he went and looked, pulled up some tapes, and saw that I was fighting. I was a champion over there, and says, you're in.
Now, like for instance, you're married, you got friends, you got family, you got coaches. What's the conversation like prior to UFC 1? Yeah, I'm going to Japan, and I'm going to go get in a fist fight with somebody, and it's real. How did those conversations kind of take place? Or?
Well, for me, it was normal because I was already doing it. I was in Japan. I mean, I was literally open hand striking over there, and so we hadn't saw what it really looked like yet. It was no holds barred, mixed martial arts. Literally, that's what they were pitching to us, but we never really saw what it really looked like. I thought what I was doing in Japan was kind of what they were doing, other than closed fists, which I thought, oh, it's not much different. And so just telling people about it, they were like, wow, man, you should do well. You're a champion over in Japan. There's no one can beat you here. None of these guys know how to do submissions like you do. And I was like, yeah, I'm thinking I'm going to walk through these guys. And I remember I went over there. It was 2 weeks, maybe a couple days. I did a fight. I knocked Fouquet out with the knee. And I jumped on a plane, brought Fouquet, brought a doctor, and brought Funaki over to the fight going into Denver for the very first time. And the whole time going there, I'm like, there's no way this is happening. There's no way. It can't happen, right? It's like, they can't do this here. And I was like thinking, like, never. And then I watched Hoist with this thing going around doing all these things, and I was like,
the Gracie train.
Yeah, I thought it was a joke. I was like, are you kidding me? This guy weighs 180 pounds. Like, are you serious? I was like, I'll squash this kid. And so I remember we get there, and there's about probably 7 reporters there. It was not very big. And very first thing that Horian does, he starts taking away stuff. He takes away One of the guys is kick pads and tells another guy he can wear one boxing glove and starts takes my shoes away. And I was like, of course, me not knowing and being smart, saying, no, this is no holds barred, right? I said, okay, no problem. I'm still going to beat all these guys. They just didn't look like there was anybody there that could handle me. It was my own ego, my own cockiness. And I should have fought for it because it would have turned out much differently. But I just felt like, oh, never, baby, I'll kill these guys. And Hoist is walking around in his pajamas. You squash these.
So Hoist is walking around in his pajamas?
Pajamas, right?
Okay.
I'm like, I'm going to kill this guy, right? And then lots of these guys look like they just got off the bar stool. Kevin Rozier is probably 100 pounds overweight. I mean, and then there was some of them like Zane Frazier who looked like they could fight, like Patrick Smith. And, some of those guys who looked like they could fight.
Gordeau is a bad...
And I knew Gordeau, right? I knew he was a badass. And I said, okay, he's the one I have to worry about, Gordeau.
Yeah.
And so I thought to myself, man, I'm going to win this thing, man. If Gordeau's the only one I gotta watch out for, I'm going to win this thing. And I thought to myself as I was going into this, I'm going to win. And then all of a sudden, they start taking Zane Frazier's kick pads away, and they let Art Emerson wear one glove, and they said I couldn't wear my shoes. It's like 24 hours before we were going to fight. And of course, whatever, I'm still going to win. This can't be that big of a deal. I mean, I'd never been in a ring without a shoe on, right? I mean, I've always had a wrestling shoe on.
This is your comfort, right?
Yeah, it's everything. It's my base. But I didn't realize how much it would affect me until I actually got in there without shoes on. And I remember the very first fight happens, and this is where when we talked up earlier about no holds barred, anything goes. I thought that's what we were doing in Japan, pretty close, right? And that maybe we just bare knuckle, but it can't be much different. But when Gerardo hit that sumo, boom, he punches him. He goes to the ground, he kicks him in the face.
Was that Tula? Yeah,
Taylor Tula.
Yeah. Taylor Tula. Oh my God.
He football kicks him in the face.
Yeah, it gets his teeth implanted in his foot.
Right then and there, you're like, that's no holds barred. That's what we don't understand here. We didn't realize it looked like this. And I thought it's a street fight.
And they were so backwards. They were like, well, do we take the teeth out of the foot? No, let's just wrap it up, leave the teeth in, and then we'll take care of it afterward. I mean, meanwhile, he almost lost his foot because of it.
Right. It was.
Was there even a doctor there?
There was, but it was.
Like a chiropractor? What are we talking about?
It was a nurse.
You just got an EMT. We found him on the way over to the event. He's great.
It was weird because nobody really. Personally, I just think people were just in shock at what was happening.
I can't even believe they allowed that.
Well, I mean, you think about the headbutts.
How much resistance did they have? Like, did you guys notice, like, even in the locker room prior, like, this might not go?
No, man. I mean, yeah, everybody was like, yeah, it's happening, but no one knew what it looked like. I mean, how many people really understand what they're going to go into when you got guys that are professional fighters, right? And all of a sudden you see a football kick. Like a guy in the street kicks somebody in the head when he's down. Headbutts and people punching and biting and pulling hair. And you're like, that's not quite no holds barred that we expected, right? We were thinking more like the fighting and the wrestling and things people are used to seeing in a professional manner.
Okay, that's a brawling style. What you experienced was a skill set in Japan.
Yes.
Like they were trying to figure out what they were doing. Meanwhile, Japan already had the nuances already. They were much more advanced over there.
Absolutely. But the key, what I'm trying to say is that we were all expecting this no holds barred thing, and we were expecting it to look a certain way. But the reality is that when it actually played out, it was completely different than what anybody expected. I remember a couple of guys in there going, I didn't sign up for this. I was like, no, brother, you did. We just didn't expect it to look like this.
Right,
And I was excited because, I mean, the way I grew up was like, you either got shot, stabbed, or jumped. Right? That's what you had to worry about. But if you were fighting somebody one-on-one, face-to-face, that was a good day. And so when I saw this, I was like, oh, man, this is right up my alley, man. This is going to be awesome. And I remember going against Patrick Smith, and I smashed him. And then I went up against Hoist.
He was pissed. He was
really pissed.
He wanted to fight again. Yeah.
But here's the thing. This is where I realized that I screwed myself. Because if you watch that, when I went to shoot it on a pad, I shot in and I couldn't take him down. I had to spin him around enough times to trip him and bring him down because my feet were slipping.
was going to ask
couldn't
that.
shoot, right? So I ended up getting him down. I heel hooked him. I couldn't. And then when I went back to the locker room, I'm like, okay, it's slick out there.
You should tape the bottom of your foot, maybe.
No, because it's still, when the dirt gets on that tape, it's even more slipperier. So putting a tape on there would make it worse. So I just said, I'll go in and I'll shoot on a hoist, I'll get him down, and I'll work from the ground.
You should just went with shoes regardless.
I should have fought it because it was supposed to be no holds barred.
You should just walked in with shoes. Just, what are you talking about? Oh, yeah, we'll discuss it in the ring right before, But
they said we couldn't wear them. I mean, they literally said you can't wear them, and it's like.
Were you wearing a mouthpiece during this or no?
Yeah. Well, and I was different though. A lot of other guys did. I was already fighting over in Japan, so
But was it regular? Like, did they tell you, hey, you can wear a mouthpiece, you can't wear a mouthpiece?
No.
So,
they didn't even recommend a mouthpiece.
Yeah, we don't recommend it.
Nothing.
We don't recommend a mouthpiece, but do not wear shoes. Like, how ridiculous is that?
Well, if you know, the next time I fought a horse, I wore my shoes.
Yeah.
I beat the hell out of them.
Yeah.
So it just, so it was a lot of politics involved.
It was slanted. It was just like Japan when you were not one of the chosen guys.
Exactly.
It's the same thing. That's the fight game.
Yes.
That's the fight game. So the UFC, you fought under 3 different matchmakers. Obviously, you just addressed Art Davie. What about John Peretti?
Yeah.
What's your opinion of John?
Well, I mean, like I said, John Peretti was, I knew him and we had talked, but I didn't get to know him really well.
He's another catch wrestling guy.
Yes. But I didn't get to know him really well because I think that was the time where I started to kind of almost fade out of it. So I know he was there for a short time, but I don't think I was there long with him.
He was a talented guy.
He was. He was very, and a good dude too. I like him. But like I said, I don't mean he just had a lot going on there, and as he should. But I just never really got to connect with him.
Did you have a different relationship with Joe Silva?
No, Joe Silva was. We had issues.
Okay.
Because of what the thing with Mikey Burnett. They said, well, if you win your next fight, you'll get to fight the champ, which was Pat Miletich, because Mikey fought him and they went that tough fight, and Mikey ended up losing the decision, which I thought he had won the fight.
Judging back then, though, was so like...
It was... I was a champion. Bolander or Guy was the middleweight champion, and if Mikey would have beat Miletich, which I thought he did, he would have been the lightweight champion, and they just didn't want one camp to have all the belts.
All the belts. All right, so now you're speaking about Lion's Den.
Yes.
What is the start of Lion's Den? What opens the doors in terms of brick and mortar?
Well, when I started over in Japan, I remember I would come back from Japan and I would be trying to find places to train. It was like, hey, I'm going to go into this boxing gym, and I would say, hey, man, can you punch
Any ground guys here?
Can you punch at me and I'm going to shoot on you? They're like, what? I said, no, just like, throw punches at me and I'm going to take you down. And they're like, no. It was like foreign, like speaking foreign language to them. And I was like, I'm not going to hurt you.
Let me draw it out for you.
Yeah. And then I would go into wrestling, guys, and I would go, hey, shoot on me, I'm going to punch at you. I'm not going to hit you hard, but I'll punch you. They're like, no, you're not. I couldn't get anybody to work with me. So I ended up developing.
That.
Yeah,
I can honestly see that.
Think about how foreign that was.
Yeah.
You're going to what?
Yeah.
Huh?
You were going to these dojos in different places, and they were like, no, we don't do that here.
Yeah, then you go to a karate place. Yeah, we really don't fight. We just kind of
here.
It's all
do katas.
Right.
Yeah. We got this wooden sword on the wall.
We would have to kill you if we hit you.
You might die, Ken. You might die.
It was for your own safety. So I was like, okay.
Think of your children. We
right. We want to make sure, hey, come on, man. We want to make sure you have a great time here. We don't want anybody to get hurt.
You're signed this contract. Yeah. Okay, so back to Pride. Nobuhiko Takada was very influential in Pride. He was also a wrestler. In the wrestling days, when you guys shared locker rooms, did you know that you and him would I guess, parallel each other in different continents in regards to where you guys aspired to?
No way. He was so much far ahead of me when I was in the pro wrestling part.
So he wouldn't give you the time of day, huh?
No way, man. I don't even think he noticed me, right?
Really?
Yeah, it was just I was so far behind. He was a superstar. And even when he started doing the early days of the mixed martial arts, he was a superstar. I mean, him and Maeda were the two big dogs. And I came in with Funaki and Suzuki. I worked out with those guys, and we were underneath all those guys. And
It's weird how they just kind of went different ways, and
they split into 3 different groups. You got Fujiwara Gumi, you got Maeda, and you got Takada. They all split up in 3 different organizations.
And Takada's really the one that came through. And I mean, basically, it was his contacts with the underworld that really did it.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and you see, they blew up.
So did you see like the underworld people in the pro wrestling side as well? Would they show up at the events?
Oh, yeah.
Did you know who they were?
Well, they'd always give you envelopes, with money in it.
Really?
Yeah, so you got, good large chunks of money, 5,000, 10,000. Some of those bigger guys got 50 to 100,000.
Just as a, here you go?
Well, if they gave you the envelope, then, you would meet them for dinner afterwards, and you'd go have dinner, and, they just rub shoulders. So it was really a big thing back then, and a lot of those guys, man. I remember Stan Hansen used to get lots of those things, man, on top of his pay. So that's just what happened there, and so
It's a whole different culture,
it,
man.
it is, because it once that's done and you shake their hand and you get the envelope, then you're obligated to be their friend. You're going to go to dinner with them.
It's like that prison mentality. You go eat that, treat on your pillow, and
Right.
you owe your cellmate.
Yeah, you're
doing
on
his
our-
laundry
you're on our
if you're
side.
lucky.
Yeah, so it was good too, because a lot of guys, make really good money, and I mean, it wasn't anything illegal either. It's not like they had us go out and killing anybody. And like that was just so they wanted to hang out with you.
It's just more where the money came from is the
Right,
problem.
exactly,
Right. Yeah.
right.
It's not what you're doing or what your
Right.
business is. Well, I mean, Ken, if you really look at mixed martial arts in general, anytime there's a large organization, here, Pride, you got, the Yakuza. You got 3rd generation casino owners, from Vegas owning the UFC. I think that kind of goes unsaid, what was there.
Right.
Who's Fedor owned by? So anytime you have a large organization, you just have to assume, there's some nefarious issues happening, but you just kind of stay away from it. You just keep your business clean.
Yeah, but you also got, I look at it like this. Every major multi-million-dollar company, whether they're involved in organized crime or not, they're organized crime. Because in order for them to get there, they've had to cut corners, step on toes, and push people out in order to get to where they're at, in order to be that guy that's taking over all of that industry. They had to really get after people and cut them out. And to me, that's the same mentality when you talk about organized crime. It's the same friggin' thing.
Anytime you meet a CEO that needs bodyguards, you just assume the guy's a giant piece of shit. I mean, it's just...
Yeah, it's like it's that many people want to hurt him.
Yeah, I mean, you're not even on TV, and you need a bodyguard?
Right,
It's like, okay, no, we're cool.
Well, or some of them, they just posers. They want to have a bunch of bodyguards so people think they're that important.
Yeah.
Either way, I want no part of that. Yeah,
Right.
either way.
Yeah, exactly. Like, just leave me out of that.
My favorite Lions Den fighter is Jerry Bolander.
Yeah.
Now, if you had like a short list of fights to go into the UFC Hall of Fame, him and Ferozzo, in my opinion, has to be on that short list.
I love Jerry, man.
How did you guys hook up?
Actually, he came to a tryout. He was down in the Bay Area. He came to one of my tryouts, and I really liked him. He was a great wrestler, good mentality, worked hard, grind. He was always grinding. And he was a guy in my gym that, even when Frank was there, he was the guy I relied on to run my classes because he was that good. But when he fought Tito, Mikey Burnett saw it, I saw it, he just checked out. Like he just wasn't excited about fighting anymore. And it was going into that fight. And I believed if he hadn't, that fight would have been different because he was that good. But it was almost like, and after that fight, he was done. He was like, I don't want to fight no more. And he felt he didn't have the love or desire to do it anymore.
How about that Scott Ferozzo fight? I think
It was unbelievable.
It probably took years off of his life if you really think about it.
Well, and I think that one, and I think when he fought that 5-time or 4-time Brazilian
Jiu-jitsu.
world champion, I mean, he was only in 6 months. It was his first fight, and he beat him.
That's insane. Like, I think he's one of those footnotes in MMA history that we've mentioned a few of them. In my opinion, he's one of those guys that needs to be just respected more.
He's the first middleweight champion in the history of the UFC.
Yeah.
Why isn't he recognized?
Yeah.
Guy Mesger is the second middleweight champion
You guys were
in UFC
cleaning
history.
up.
Frank Shamrock was the third middleweight champion in UFC. I was the first heavyweight super fight, single fights.
Either way.
Yeah, whatever they want to call it. But same thing with those guys. And Mikey Burnett, if, he would have gotten that, opportunity, he would have probably been the first or the second, because Milicic was the first, but it would have been the second lightweight champion, because I remember they made him fight one fight, and they said, well, you fight another one. He fought another fight, and then they said, fight another one.
One more.
And we're like, and that's why me and Silva didn't get along, was because I jumped Silva and saying, you promised him a fight, and now you're not giving it. Then Mikey quit.
See, but he got away with a lot of that stuff with other camps. Like, you were just a little more experienced than everybody else.
Yeah.
So he's just kind of doing you what he's doing to everybody and getting away with.
Yeah.
It's just you were calling him on it.
Well, and I thought I did a lot in that time. I developed a lot of things. I created a lot of opportunities, a lot of training methods, a lot of different things that people hadn't seen. And I was, for a lot of those guys that were in that position, they were either angry or jealous of that. And they wanted to put me in my place because they had the power to do it. And it just was stupid, man, because it was like...
Power move.
Yeah, it was just like... no matter what you do to me, no matter what you say or try to do to me, it's still not going to change.
We'll go to Japan.
Well, it's not going to change. You're not going to take anything that I haven't done away.
Yeah. You just mentioned Tito a little bit ago. I remember, I'd probably say if we were probably put together a list of maybe the biggest rivals in the history of not just UFC, but MMA, Tito and Ken Shamrock probably top 5.
Battle of California, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I was a lot younger then, and I bought into that rivalry the same way I bought into, like, Hulk Hogan versus Andre the Giant. You know what I mean? Like, how much of that was real and how much of that was for show?
Yeah. It was all real. And there was nothing I ever did that wasn't real. But it was
you knew how to sell tickets, though.
Exactly.
I mean, like, it was entertaining.
Right.
I mean, even as a fan watching, I'm like, man, this is legit. Like, they hate each other.
I bought it.
And if you guys would have fought a fourth or fifth time, I would have bought into it too.
Well, but because it was real. I mean, I literally found something I didn't like about him, and I attacked it until it pissed me off so mad that I hated him. But I did it with all my fighters, all the guys I fought. I did that. I would find something I didn't like about him, and I would just attack it until I was so angry at him I hated him. But after the fight was over, I was able to let go of that.
Yeah.
Okay, so you had mentioned tryouts for the Lion's Den. You guys were recording that. You guys were actually making a TV show out of it. Are you guys ever going to upload that footage? I would love to see it. I would love to see that.
Well, unfortunately, the videos are gone. Somebody had taken them. I don't know who it is. I've been trying to find it, and they just, for whatever reason, they're gone.
Oh, God, I would love to watch that.
And we had at least 4 or 5 different of those we had filmed. And it was really, in today's world, you see Survivor, all these things that people do to test people's mental toughness. I did it first.
Yeah,
it was Tough House.
A blueprint for the Ultimate Fighter.
100%.
Yeah. Well, and you look at the Survivor series with the island and people surviving on an island where they got to challenge one another and all these other survival games. I started it. People don't give credit to me for that because that's what I did to fighters. I put them in a position to where they were going to fail, but all they had to do was mentally fight through it.
Well, Ken, we at the Fighters Corner acknowledge that.
Yes.
Well, I'll tell you another thing. And like I said, we're trying not to go to pro wrestling, to MMA, but I mean, you've been around so many blocks, it's kind of difficult not to. When you went to the WWE, you actually changed the entire landscape in regards to the submission, the tap out. No one could have pulled that off other than yourself. Like it added an entirely new element to the WWE. Do you recognize that as well?
I do. I hate tooting my own horn because I'm just not like that. But it kind of bothers me too because it's almost like they want to kind of push it aside and give credit to somebody else. I mean, I see pictures
like the Undertaker.
all the time.
Like they're trying to give it to the Undertaker.
Well, and they're trying to give it to Kurt Angle, and I love Kurt, but whenever they show the top submission holds, they put Kurt Angle with the ankle lock. I'm like, you don't even do it right? And
he's just holding your foot. He's holding the guy's foot.
Yeah, just holding his foot, dragging him around.
It's almost like they're so afraid to give me any credit.
Why is that?
I was there.
Why is that?
I don't know, man.
What's your relationship
so
like with Triple H? I mean, I know he's
I don't know. I mean, I've been around him in a long time. I know when I was there, it wasn't the best. But
Because I'm trying to figure out, and a lot of fans are trying to figure out, why haven't you been introduced to the WWE
Hall of Fame, 100%.
well, and how about when they invite these people back to the Attitude Era? I'm not there.
Yeah,
I'm like, the Attitude was built off of something I helped create.
right.
But yet,
That's
I'm not
weird,
invited
isn't it?
back. Yeah. So there's something.
Have you reached out to him or no?
Oh, I've reached out several times. I mean, we reached out to Shane one time, years back when he was overseas somewhere doing some TV stuff, trying to introduce pay-per-view to other countries. And I asked him, hey, what's the chance of me getting back there? And is there an issue with me or anything like that? And he said, well, let me call. And I just never heard back.
Yeah, in other words,
So, but I don't know. Like I said, I really don't know the foundation of what's happening because no one ever says anything. They just kind of blow it off. But it's real because when you got them putting up Kurt Angle as the best submission holds, they put the best 10 submission holds, and he's the one doing the submission hold, and he's not doing it right. And you're like, okay, I could see if somebody does it better than you.
We all know this is fake. But that's not acceptable.
There's something going on there, right? And to think about before pro wrestling, right? People didn't tap out. They said, I quit or I give up. But the tap out came in because I brought that in. All the submission holds you're seeing now in pro wrestling, they only had, 3-4 different rest holds, they would call them, like a rear choke or
a beer hug. Yeah.
Now you look at it, and it is a whole nother landscape that I brought into pro wrestling.
Well, you also brought in like the Japan work ethic as well.
Yeah.
An American doing that.
Yeah, because I learned it over there, and I ended up incorporating that into my character of the fast pace, the intensity, the registering, maybe not selling all the time until you needed to sell. And I just mixed that and blended it together.
I'm sorry, could you explain those two terms for people who don't know the registering and selling?
Yeah, when you talk about registering, it's when someone they hit you with a punch and you kind of go back and you keep going, like you just register you were hit, as opposed to selling when someone hits you, boom, and you actually go to your knees and you work it a little bit, like and then you come back a little bit more at a time. So there's a register and then there's selling. Selling is overdoing it, and registering is realizing you got hit.
Yeah.
So what I did was I balanced the two, where if somebody did something to me and it was, maybe I would register it, right? And then they do it again, and then I register it again, and they do it one more time, and then I would sell it. And I kind of mixed those things in together into pro wrestling, along with bringing in the tap out.
Okay, so speaking of locker rooms, it's going to be a little uncomfortable, so I apologize. So when you fought Kimbo in that locker room, what exactly happened? In regards to getting cut and stuff like that. Like I've heard you do like some interviews.
Oh, you mean when I got cut the first time I fought him?
Yes.
Yeah, that was. There's
some rumors about it.
Well, that's fine. No matter what happens, you're always gonna have rumors. But there was some things that were going on personally at home.
Okay.
My father had gone into the hospital. He was on life support, and they told me he wasn't gonna make it. And then I was deciding, well. Do I fight or don't fight? He says, well, and they said, listen, he's fine. He's not going to pass away, right? He is on life support, but he's not. We've got him stabilized. And I was like, so there's nothing that I could really do anyways if I was there. And so I said, okay, we'll fight. So I remember going in because my mind was so clogged. Like I had all this stuff going on. And I remember going with my buddy Dan Freeman, and we pushed all the furniture out of the way, and there was some floor in there, and I was working on the choke that I was going to get him in, because I knew every time he would get him to the ground, he'd roll to his belly, and you'd throw in hooks and choke him. So I was working on that, just as I did the last time I fought him. And so we get in there, I was working on it, and as I was down there, I was throwing in the choke, and Dan had his head down, and I actually went on top, threw my hooks in, I put the choke in there, and I went to kind of choke him, and he kind of wanted to explode up and give me a little extra work. And his head popped up, like, whoosh, bam, hit me in there, and I thought nothing of it. I thought, no big deal. All of a sudden, I see a blood trickle come out, boom. And I was like, oh. And I'm reaching up, and there's blood on there, and I'm looking in the mirror, and I go in the mirror, and I have a gash in my forehead, right underneath my eye, where he had actually popped his head up, hit the tip of the bone, and it just cut it.
Did you ever think about gluing it and keeping your mouth shut?
I tried to do that, but... this is what went through my mind. If I glued that shut and he had actually got into a clinch or anything was to happen and it opened up,
There'd be a loss.
I'd lose.
See, let the commission know.
I had to.
Man, that must have been nuts.
It
in
was
that
hard
locker
for me to
room.
do but at the same time, I didn't want to lose.
Yeah.
I did not want to lose on a technicality because it opened up, because it was deep. It was deep.
Well,
I mean,
I
they
saw pictures of it.
double-stitched
It was ugly. It was
Yeah,
ugly.
It was double stitched. And
It pretty much ended the organization.
what's that?
The organization
Yeah.
pretty
What
much.
was it? It was not Strike
No,
Force.
it was like was it
Elite.
Elite,
yeah.
yes.
That was it for them. Yeah, he couldn't get any more money out of the the investors after that.
Well, and what really made me angry, and a lot of things work out. You just don't see it coming, and I think this is why there was rumors there.
Well, the rumor was that there was such a pay discrepancy.
Yes.
You tried to hold him hostage.
That's not true. That's such a lie. What had happened is they had guaranteed me.
Dana was involved.
No.
Yeah, you know what I
No.
mean? It's
They guaranteed me I would be the highest paid. Nobody would be on that card that would get paid more than me. Well, what they did was they ended up putting, because the one in Vegas, the show in Vegas got canceled with Roy Nelson and I forget his name, Italian kid, vampire.
Andrei Arlovsky? But
Yes.
he's not
Andrei
Italian.
Arlovsky. Those
Yeah.
two were supposed to fight.
Bulgarian.
They couldn't sell the fight out in Vegas, so it got canceled. So they put them on my card in a semi-main event. And they were making more money than me. And I said, I said, I did this because you guys said you couldn't pay me enough money. And I did this only if I was the highest paid guy on this card. And now you're telling me you got somebody on the card that I'm fighting on that's getting paid more than me.
That's insulting.
I was like, no,
It's
that's
insulting.
not happening.
It's insulting.
Right. Along with my father, finding out after we had this conversation, I find out it wasn't more 10, 15 minutes after I get done with this conversation, I find out my dad, he slips into this.
Man, you had an awful
It was a bad day.
bad week.
Yeah. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to do the fight. I'm going to go do this. And that happens. And I mean, literally, everything's going through my mind. I got to fight. I got to do this. I got to do that. And then when I decided, hey, I got to tell them. And I told them, even when I went and got it stitched up, I said, I can fight. Because I wasn't going to do it with the glue, right? Because I knew it would open up.
If you could do glue and stitch.
But I stitched it. I had him double stitch. I told the doc, I said, stitch it up so I can go into the commission and say I can fight. That it'll stay. If I don't get hit really hard, it'll stay. So he stitched it up pretty well. And I went in, I told them I would fight. This is what they don't tell you. I told them I would fight.
And if you really think about it, if you're going to get hit really hard in that spot, it's going to open up anyway.
Exactly. And I'd have been okay with that. I just wasn't okay
because
with
because
super
it
glue.
would have
Right.
been open up anyway.
Right. So,
did you get your show money?
I don't think I even got paid. No.
That's why I think technically, as long as you step on that scale,
Yeah, but I wouldn't have done that.
That's not who you are.
But what pissed me off
Yeah.
was that they don't tell people that I told them and the commission. I told them, and those guys followed me there, and I told them, I said, I'll fight, guys. Just to let you know, this isn't something that you guys are trying to put all this conspiracy. I'll fight. They didn't tell anybody that. I went to the commission, and they were with me, and they said, we'll let them fight. I said, I'll fight. Commission said no.
all right. The questions that we're asking you, they're not your normal questions. Am I correct?
No.
These are like deep dive, friggin' dorky questions.
We're nerds.
Okay.
No, but
so
these are
for
good
me
questions.
to ask you if that was a work or not,
Right.
tells you if I couldn't figure it out just based on my research,
Right.
there's a problem there.
Right.
So I appreciate you clearing that
Well,
up.
and it too, and
Yeah.
I think it's good. I love these because then I get to really tell what happened. And I, like I said, I went to the commission. I had a double stitch the doc. I went to the commission and said, I will fight.
Dude, that's fucking nuts.
And
Just think about
and the
that.
commission said no.
That's amazing. All right, so speaking of the Ultimate Fighter, you came in, it was you and Tito coaching against each other.
It was season 3, right?
Yes, 3. They
So
asked me
the
to do
best
one.
one.
Yeah,
The
they
best
asked me to
one.
do one, but I couldn't do it.
Really?
Yes, I was supposed to do the first
The
one.
first one had like all the all-stars on it,
Why
right?
couldn't you do that?
I had another obligation. Yeah,
Okay.
I was already doing something.
Okay, so you brought in a nutritionist,
Yep.
and the entire house was just like, what the hell is wrong with this guy? He doesn't know what he's talking about. Now, everybody has a nutritionist. Where does that come from? Where does that type of discipline come from?
Well, I think it's just the way that I had actually treated my own professional career. It was like I didn't leave any stone unturned.
You treated it like your body like a business.
That's it. I mean, everything I did had to be well planned out. It had to have every angle covered. And I thought fighting was a big part of winning and losing was your nutrition and your diet.
Where does it come from, though? Who taught you that? You had to have picked it up somewhere.
I don't think I did. I just think that
Your dad?
no, I think that I felt, obviously I picked it up from my dad because that was the one, he taught me how to train and work out, and the nutrition was a big part of that. And I felt like it was the same thing in fighting, whereas like me being able to be at 100%, that I had to eat properly, and I had to have somebody there that would have knowledge, that would have an understanding, and that would always have the right supplements that I needed to be able to put into my body so that I was working at a very high level. And I did that way earlier than anybody ever expected. And when I brought it into the fighter's house,
it was unheard of.
they looked at it like, why is he not, where's the, because I was a grappler. I knew all the grappling. I also knew how to strike, but I brought in a boxing coach. And so then I brought in a nutritionist as my other coach. And they were like, well, where's our grappling coach? I mean, right here. Right.
Some guy named Ken Shamrock.
I'll make him appear.
Right. So you're supposed to have two coaches, and I brought a coach, myself, and a nutritionist.
If you really think about it, it's not, you don't even really have to think about it. It's obvious. That's so important. Like if that's where you take your notes. The grappling stuff you can figure out. Boxing stuff you can figure out. The nutrition, how often do you really run into an expert at what it is your body needs? It's not very often.
I remember guys were laughing at Dan too, because he was Dan Freeman, who was the nutritionist, had been for ever since my career. And he would give these guys different things. And Ross was one of the guys that took it serious. And,
Ross Point.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he had to lose some weight. And so he ate this chicken breast, and he had to drink this distilled water, like I don't know how many gallons of distilled water the night before. And then to eat a chicken breast, not one that was processed, but a regular fresh chicken breast, and drink a bunch of distilled water. And that you would drop 5 to 15 pounds. Well, he did that. Next morning, he dropped 10 pounds, and he made his weight. And everybody else in there, they all thought it was like ridiculous for us to have a nutritionist. And you look at now today, I mean, that's the most important thing to people's camp now.
100%.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you look at the precedent, it's changed. Like 10, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, it wasn't, like here, there was a saying back then that you were on the wrong side of 30 if you were like, 32, 33 years old. If you were an athlete, whether it's MMA, any pro sport, if you were older than 30, you were on the wrong side of 30, and that was pretty much them saying you're starting to go down. Right. Now it's not 30 anymore.
No, it's almost 40.
It's I mean, look at a guy like Tom Brady.
Yeah.
Because of who you brought into the house.
I mean, they're just getting older and older because people are learning to take care of their bodies.
That's
it's so important. Yeah,
it's phenomenal.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, and you think about it was funny too, because I remember when Dan was doing the nutrition there, and they had this supplement that they brought in there, and it was horrible. Right? It was just horrible. And Dan goes, man, this thing sucks. And Dan looks at me, well, why don't you do your own? Well, so Dan did.
Maybe I will.
And his is all, and he's still doing it. I mean, he's got some really good supplements. And so I remember thinking when we were doing that literally after they were talking about all of that trash about having a nutritionist, they went out and created their own supplement company. It's like, well, you're against it or you're not against it.
You guys don't do this.
Right.
Yeah, but we're going to do it. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's wild. All right, so obviously you're ahead of the curve. And speaking of ahead of the curve, you're now getting into the bare knuckle boxing with Valor.
Which is really cool.
Dude, I'm a huge fan of bare knuckle boxing. So how does a Ken Shamrock get involved with an organization like Valor?
Well, when I was obviously fighting in the earlier days, it was bare knuckle. I mean, and I just, it was so, we talked about him, Drago going there, and just boom, bare knuckle, bam, knock him down and kicking him. It was just that rawness of that fight where it was just no gloves, God-given talent. Two guys go in
Warriors.
there. And you're just like, there was so much adrenaline there. And then Tank comes out, puts these 4-ounce gloves on and starts knocking people out. And all of a sudden this guys are like, wow, hey, that's a great idea.
You could throw harder punches.
Why don't we put gloves on guys and we'll say we're protecting the fighters. And the reality of it is they're protecting the guys that are winning.
I agree.
They don't care about the guys getting knocked out because the ones that the fans are going to follow are the ones that are winning. So let's protect their hands. So they started putting gloves on them, 4-ounce gloves on guys, so that they would protect the guys winning so they can come back and fight again.
In bare knuckle, you can't go power, or you'll break your hands.
Well, you got to be more accurate in bare knuckle, and I always told myself, like, man, I remember the feeling I had about bare knuckle and the love that I had for it, and it was taken away. Obviously, they did great. It was a $4 billion company. But I felt like, man, that purity of bare knuckle and what the fans, I believe, fell in love with in the first place was the purity of that fighting where it was bare knuckle. Remember, them kept screaming, stand them up, stand them up. And so now I always told myself, if I get a chance, I'm going to bring it back. I'm going to let people have the same feeling and the same love that I had for that bare knuckle feeling. And so now we're doing it. September 21st, I'm bringing back my dream, bringing back bare knuckle fighting, and I'm going to be able to bring fighters in and for them to be able to have an understanding of what I felt.
We got a 4-man tournament too. Yeah,
This man,
the
one
card is
night,
stacked.
man. That right there in itself, that's old school. That's cutting your teeth. And you want to talk about one of the baddest bare knuckle fighters in the world? Win the tournament.
Are the finals that night too, or no?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's 4-man one night. No, I'm getting that.
Wow.
Dude. Yeah, I'm not buying that.
Yeah.
When was the last time we seen that on a pro level for combat sports?
4-man, not.
Yeah,
On
and
the-
not since the beginning.
No, exactly. I was just gonna say then.
And
not since the beginning.
you also have an extra heavyweight fight in case there's like an alternate. I saw.
Oh
that.
yeah, we got
In
two.
case somebody-
We got
yeah.
two of them. We got two alternates, but McSweeney and LeVar Johnson. Come on, man.
yeah.
Those
Yeah.
guys can be on anybody's main card, but they're our alternates.
Well, you also got Godbeer on the card.
Godbeer, I think.
Oh
He's a
well, he's
dark
a,
horse.
he's a bare knuckle champion, man.
Yeah.
I will tell you, that's the dark horse right there. Like the American fans, we follow bare knuckle in Europe. Like there's one today actually, and we follow it closely. I've been over there to watch it in person, and I think Godbeer, man, dude, that is a stacked tournament. It's kind of hard with heavyweights.
Well,
It's
you
always
got
hard to
Mighty
predict.
Mo, you got Sokoju. I mean, oh my goodness.
You got power versus athleticism in that side of the card. I don't know, man. I can't wait. Mighty Mo hits like a brick.
Yeah.
LeVar Johnson too. I mean,
Yeah.
that's something that'd be real interesting to watch too.
It's going to be fun, man. I think these guys, the card
How
guys
does it
are
come
amazing.
together, though? How do you get approached with it, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, first of all, I got to give credit to we have a great team. We got,
Okay.
80 years of experience with our whole team there. A lot of connections. And Richard Goodman did a great job of put this card together.
It's a phenomenal card.
Yeah, it's a really good card. And so he's done a great job. But with our team and all the
CJ
connections
Lamas is
we
on
have-
that card, too,
Oh,
dude.
and that's a sleeper right there. That's a good fight.
I'm telling you, that
Yeah.
guy's a beast.
Yeah, and the guy he's fighting, is it Kimona or something like that?
Yeah, I'm not sure who he's fighting. He fought Chris Lytle in Cancun.
Oh, that was a great fight too.
Yeah. He almost finished Chris.
Yeah,
in the
well,
first round.
And that's a hard thing to do.
Lytle goes to another level though, man. But
I'll be with him a little later today, man. That's my
yeah,
guy.
Yeah, he's something else. But yeah, we got a great card, man. I'm excited for it. As a fighter, I don't get excited about much, but it's almost like I'm bringing back that old school.
Gets you excited, doesn't it?
Where style against style, because bare knuckle is its own beast, man. And a lot of guys think bare knuckle, they can just go, oh, I'm a boxer or I'm an MMA guy, I can go in and do this.
No.
It's the same thing in the beginning of the UFC. Your style don't match with this. You have to practice.
Mm-hmm.
You have to have an understanding of what you're doing in there, or you're going to go in there and you're going to get beat.
See, where people make mistakes is they'll watch like footage from the 30s and they'll watch the movements of the glove boxers and they'll go, oh my God, it's garbage. They're horrible. No. That is somebody that was trained under the bare knuckle style, trying to figure out how to fight with gloves. The bare knuckle style in the late 1800s, early 1900s was perfect. And eventually we're going to get there again and it's going to look just like those early videos.
That's right. Well, and like I said, just like with the 4-ounce gloves where they put it on there to make it safer. Well, that's not true.
It changes the style.
They did it with boxing, with bare knuckle. We'll put
Changes
gloves on to
the
make it
style.
safer. No, man. All you're doing is making it more dangerous because you're taking more punches to the head.
You're protecting the weapon at the expense of the target.
Yes. So you think about getting 100 times hit in the head as opposed to 20 times getting hit in the head.
You got to throw punches and bunches in bare knuckle, and you can load up on a power shot that you can't do without a glove. With glove fights.
Right.
So it's
So what's the difference between like Valor and a couple of other organizations that are going on right now? I mean, you guys fighting in a squared ring, ropes. I
yeah.
mean,
What's the gimmick,
Yeah, what's-
Cad?
yeah,
Come on.
there's
I
gotta
mean,
be
you're
something.
you're way too seasoned not to have
I
a
know
gimmick.
the wraps are a little bit different. You guys are protecting the hands a little bit different than I think it's just a wrist wrap. There's nothing that's going past the knuckles or something
Well,
like that.
my thing with bare knuckle is bare knuckle. I mean,
Sure.
people keep saying, "Oh, we're going to fight bare knuckle." You see them come out with their hands are taped halfway up their hand. It's like that's not bare knuckle. I was like, if you cannot fight without tape on your hand, you're not a bare knuckle fighter.
Can you tape
so
your
tape
wrist?
your wrist, only your wrist, no thumbs, no nothing, just the wrist.
I'll honor that.
Yeah, because it is bare knuckle. There's nothing on the hand, right? And then I think to myself, they either rabbit punches, they're holding the head, they're hitting guys. I'm like,
So you're not gonna allow
why would
clinching?
you allow them to hold the head when you're supposed to be hitting?
So there's no clinching.
There's clinching, but when you're in a clinch, you're not holding them. You can get up on a guy, you can put your head into him, you can bump him with the shoulder, but do not grab him.
Okay.
Use your hands to hit him. So that makes the fight even faster, right? It's 3 3-minute rounds. And here's the thing, man. We have a unique pit where it's going to be a much different way for you to view a fight. There is no ropes. There's no cages. It is an experience that most people constantly keep having a problem with.
No ropes?
No ropes, no fences.
So what is it, like on a wrestling mat?
It's a pit.
So you're in.
It's a pit. And you have to see it in order to understand it. I designed it, and I designed it because I always felt like I always heard the same thing where people would get the best seats in the house. And there was always the fence in the way, or that there was ropes in the way, or a turnbuckle was in the way.
You're looking down on
So
it.
now you got an opportunity to view this thing and you get the best seats in the house, and they are.
Do you think that's going to hurt you going to other states, that type of setup?
Why?
Do you even care? Do you even care?
It's like this. When people brought the fence in, the cage in, people said, well, you can't fight in that. That's not legal. Well, they fight in it. So it's just people having an understanding of what it is we're doing. There's no way it's more dangerous or unsafe with what we're doing.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I
and
agree
even
with
in the fighting surface, there's enough, the way I have it set up and the way it's set up, that no one's going to fall off the edge. So there's no reason why people wouldn't want to have it this way, because it's more visually sound. You can actually watch the fight and not things get in your way.
All right, so let me throw another name at you from Blast from the Past. Chris Benoit. What is your feelings in regards to him as a person and his situation?
I always thought he was a great guy.
Was it expected?
No, shocking. I think maybe other people, I didn't see it coming. Did not see it coming.
Yeah, it's a shame. That's a true travesty, man.
Yeah.
It's a guy that lost it, you know? I mean,
Yeah. Well, it just tells you that the amount of pressure that is put on you to succeed, the amount of pressure that you're put on to show up every day, whether you're hurt, whether you're dealing with pain, show goes on, man. And if you ain't in there, it will go without you. And that's really what it leads to with these guys.
Phenomenal
getting
worker,
on.
man.
Oh, he's
One of the
outstanding.
best.
But people get locked into pain pills. They get locked into somas, muscle relaxers, alcohol, cocaine.
You've avoided that.
Yeah, I did. I had my fun. Don't get me wrong, but I did. But man, I understand what they were feeling, because you get to a point where you had a great career and all of a sudden you start like slowing down. Now, the new guys are coming up, and you got a bad knee or a bad neck, and if you take time off, somebody's going to fill the spot and you ain't getting it back. So they start taking things to go to sleep. They start taking things to get up, and pretty soon there's this mad cycle that goes on, and they forget who they are. They start getting depressed, and bad things happen.
Yeah.
Marco Huas.
Oh, man, love that dude. Very beginning, man. He was the first guy that I thought that came in, and I really thought understood how to put his hands and feet together and be able to defend takedowns and be able to fight in the mixed martial arts, no-holds-barred era with kicks and punches.
Did you guys ever spar?
Never, no.
Oh, man, I would have loved to have seen that.
No, man, I always have a very high respect for him. I thought he was one of the first guys that came in that really could put the hands and kicks together.
Yeah, you guys have a lot in common in regards to how you grew up as well.
Yeah.
You know?
And he was the only guy I think that people question, but that beat the best Gracie, which was Hickson Gracie. Everybody says on the beach that he got over on him.
I've got some theories on Hickson. I won't get into them now, but I mean, he fought a 135-pound guy in the tournament in Japan that lost an eye and had the shit beat out of him for 15 minutes prior to getting to fight him. And it took Hickson, I think, 12 minutes to put him away. So when people talk about Hickson, I got all the respect in the world for him. But I also kind of understand the context of Hickson.
Yeah. He was intelligent, though, because he protected himself. He got the right fights for himself. He fought Funaki, which was my trainer, and Funaki was very good, and he beat Funaki. So I have a lot of respect for him. But I also know that he was really the one that knew and understood how to protect his legacy.
Why didn't Goker and Hickson ever fight?
Who knows?
That's the fight right there,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
King of California, right there. Old school submission guys.
I don't know, man. Like I said, I don't know a lot of things that Hicks and I respect him a lot more than I do Hoyce, just because of the way Hoyce handled himself outside the ring with different things that he did to me in the ring, and some of the response that he had coming back from kneeing me in the nuts and all the other things that he did, taking my shoes, all those other things, and the response that he had to it was very unprofessional. So, but Hicks and I always thought, I respected him. I thought he was a great fighter. But I also know that he was, being smart, that he knew what fights to take. He wasn't going to take a tough one when he's 40 years old.
Brilliant. Yeah, and you know what? I mean, you're right. He was older. He's looking at a young man's game. You can't help but respect him, but I always was surprised that him and Gokher were never put together.
Yeah.
Well, and a lot of it has to do with money. I mean, Hickson wasn't going to fight for anything less than $10 million.
That's insane.
And
it wasn't even
you gotta
available
hand
at
it
the
to
time.
him. He would get it, though. I mean, he fought Funaki, made stupid money. And he would fight these other guys, and he just made all this money, and he picked his fights. And I was like, and he was in his 40s, right? So I was like, dude, he was smart businessman. It's a very smart businessman.
I agree.
Yeah. Ken, in your history of combat sports, win or lose, who was your toughest opponent, you think?
Funaki, yeah, I would just say just because I worked out with him a lot. He helped train me, get me where I was, really good. So I think that he was the one that would probably be the one that I had the most trouble with, yes, even though I beat him.
Right. Well, Ken, I know you caught a red eye. You did us a solid doing this. We sincerely appreciate your time.
Yeah, it was
man.
good having you on,
Thanks,
man. We
man.
appreciate your time.
Hey, I appreciate you guys having me, man. Thank you.
Yeah, really cool.